like the first day of my last transfer. I had just gotten with my last companion, and there's a lot of people in Puebla and all over Mexico that have spent time working in the United States. But in Puebla, it's not like, instead of spending a lot of time like in Texas and California and along the border, a lot of them have gone farther into the country. And so you hear about them having spent time, they always talk about going to New York and New Jersey. And so one time, so this last transfer, we met this, my companion and I met this man named Omar. And Omar he had spent some time in the United States and he came back. And while he was in the United States, I think he had met the missionaries and become baptized. And so he saw us and he was talking to us about how he had come home from his mission, but he'd come home from the States, I should mean, and he was, but he had a hard time trying to keep on going to church because he had to work more to continue making money, and it was tough because I don't think he had a lot of family that was in the gospel. But he was talking to us and he says, toward the end of this conversation, he was coming back from working in the cornfields. There's lots of cornfields there, and he was carrying a backpack, and he tells us in Spanish, like, "Hey, elders, I have a squirrel." And we were like, "Oh, that's good." Like, we just kind of turned to look at each other and kind of smiled, and we're like, "Okay, we're gonna head out." "No, really, I have a squirrel." And then he opened up his backpack, pulls out a dead squirrel, and he'd shot it with a slingshot that day in the fields. And by this time, Elder Gonzalez and I were unable to look at each other because we didn't want to offend this inactive brother. And so we were like, "Okay, you have a squirrel. That's highly unexpected, but good job." And he looks at us and he just like, "Es para lonche. It's for lunch." "Yeah, baby." And we just, at that moment, we were just like, "All right, hermano, good to see you. Nos vemos. We'll see you later." We just walked off, and after about 30 seconds of speed walking away, getting out of sight and out of hearing range, we lost it for about 30 seconds. We just couldn't control the laughter anymore, and we saw him on and off since then. And about a couple weeks after I came home was General Conference, and apparently Omar made it to General Conference, and he was coming back to church. He was in the ward we had at the time. But the Squirrel Story was probably one of my personal favorites.